Jon Jones was my opponent. He had the belt. He gave an opportunity to me, and that opportunity changed my life. Is that too strong of language? My life and the experiences that I've had are different and better because of that opportunity. So I think that that's the right language. Big deal. Oh, a guy like that. Like a guy like that. I preface that because sometimes when I talk about Jon Jones, believe it or not, I come from a place of caring. And what Jon does now is very important because the last thing that you want on your hands, particularly when you have money, is free time. And the one way that you can have free time is if you have money. Now, it's very different if you had a skill set that you developed with bowling. You're going to go do that competitively sometimes, but you just enjoy bowling. You could go and pay a few bucks and just do it all by yourself. You get a few buddies together and do it. It turns into a social event. I could compare that with tennis and golf, and I so regret in many ways that I didn't find something that I could do my entire life. I could do it in high school and try to go do it in college and take a shot at the pros, but then continue on playing. These guys that know how to surf and these guys know how to ski. Fighting is very different. It's not like basketball or soccer or baseball where you can just go down to the park and do it. You don't play fighting. And it's a very dangerous skill set to have. It's a very dangerous skill set to mix with alcohol. Just for example. And so what do you do if you're Jon? If you want to do something, but here's your skill, here's your gift, your thing, and there's not an ability to do that. At least not fun, at least not play, at least not in a realistic scenario down at the park or get some buddies together. It's just, hey, buddies, come over, get some pizzas, get some drinks. We'll go in the garage and we're going to do some MMA. It's not one of, it's weird, right? And what would a Jon comeback look like? You can't come back unless you retire first. But you can't come back at all if you weren't pleasant to work with. The biggest thing that stood out for me when Dana confirmed the news that Jon is no longer the champion of the sport and that Tom was. And there was plenty of things that could stand out. I mean, how about the fact that was 5 minutes into a press conference? How about that? You don't open the press conference with it's called burying your lead. Whatever your lead story is goes at the top of the hour. The show opens with the biggest story. They were 5 minutes in, guys. It almost didn't come up. Watching that press conference, it was very realistic that had the conversation not happened, that might have slipped everybody's mind. And we find this out on social media, which, by the way, is how Jon told us. We just didn't believe it. We needed it confirmed by Dana. We got it confirmed by Dana when the press finally thought to talk to it about Dana. 5 minutes into a press conference. I would have the right to find that very surprising, but I didn't. That's not the most surprising. The most telling thing of this whole thing, for me, is when Dana said, yes, Jon Jones, this is a quote, yes, Jon Jones called the UFC last night to let us know that he is retired from the sport. And Dana finished his thought. Tom Aspinall is now the UFC's undisputed heavyweight champion. All right, let me Let me rewind that for you. Make sure you're hearing it. Yes, Jon Jones called the UFC last night. Okay. I've been there 17 years. I don't have a phone number to the UFC. I don't know what it is. I'm not completely convinced there is one. And had that been about me, Dana White would have said, Chael called me last night. I spoke to him. He let me know that he is retiring. He thanked me for the wonderful years, and subsequent to that, Tom Aspinall is now our champion. So when Jon Jones retired from the sport, he did not even inform the boss. Now, it's a very relevant detail. You might think it's small, but it's a relevant detail if what we're talking about is what does a return look like? Because the first thing that you're going to need for a return is a favor. You're going to need a friend. You're going to need somebody that you can ask. Like it or not, tremendous skills or not, you're 38 years old. Like it or not, tremendous skills or not, you're in a lawsuit after doing mushrooms in a car that was wrecked with a half-naked girl that was not your wife. Like, not for nothing, you're going to need somebody that opens the door. Greatest talent or not, you are not ranked in this division or in any division. Like it or not, you walked away from our belt. Like it or not, we can't stick that on a current champion again. It's a very interesting spot. Let me just juxtapose it with something. Michael Chandler would sign a contract right now to fight Conor McGregor. But that's a very strange thing to do, considering Conor McGregor already signed said contract and held Michael Chandler out of the sport and out of his ability to earn for over a year. It's a very weird thing to think that you would jump back in with somebody, but it is a different spot because you're not counting on something. It's not for the world championship. And it's like, man, if that comes through, I can cross my fingers and that would be great. And that's willing to take the risk. But now you're talking about something totally different. Tom Aspinall cannot jump in and do business with Jon Jones right now. Let's say he could. Let's say that he got over it. But now you need that same thing that's very hard to do for Tom Aspinall, and you need Dana to now do it. You need Dana now to also be able to get over it. To also say yes, to also think about it, to also weigh the decisions. None of those things were true when you're in the driver's seat because you got the world championship. Your next fight's going to be for a world championship because you're bringing it. So, let's talk about Conor, okay? Because there's no point in making predictions about Jon Jones. I'm hearing people do that. And I got to tell you, I don't love when people do that. Either cite me an example to tell me why you've come to the conclusion you came to, or don't be surprised when I dismiss you and question your credibility to said opinion. So let's just look at Conor McGregor, who wanted to do movies. Well, that's what Jon said he wanted to do. Who wanted to continue making money from his popularity to a sport that he no longer wants to participate in. Very tricky thing to do, but it has been done. It was done by Conor. But one thing about Conor, he was a media darling. Conor could call anybody in the media and get a story out. He could get a guest appearance. Conor could get on any show. Conor will come and deliver something that'll make it worth your while. Even if you're talking MMA and he's not going to do MMA, he'll find a way, and it's worth it. And people would do that for him. And Jones is a very different situation. Jon didn't build those relationships. And Jon didn't have something that was interesting outside of MMA. Now, not very many guys do. No insult to Jon. It's just a comparison. So, if somebody was to come back, the way that we would do that and the way that that would look like is they would start with the media. If you want to come back to a big fight, particularly a title fight, you must have the mandate of the masses. If you want to come back to a big fight, meaning you're making $1 million or you're making points, which is several $1 million, there's only one spot on the card that goes to, which is the main event. And if you're going to come back and you're going to land straight into a main event, you must acquire a skill set outside of the punches and the kicks, which means the manipulation of the media. And that is not a skill that Jon is equipped with. And we will continue to hear about Conor, and we will continue to read about Conor. People will print things about Conor, not believing they're true. They just generate interest. Conor found a way to be interesting outside of MMA. It's a very rare thing. And Jon doesn't enjoy the media. Jon was incentivized to really go out and do media. He's greatly incentivized. He was paid pay-per-view points. The pay-per-view points are the most generous thing I've ever seen in business. The boss who's taking the risk is giving you a piece of the business. People now feel that they're entitled to it. Like pay-per-view points in that mere concept is a very strange thing because the boss is giving you. If the show fails, he doesn't make you write a check. You are given a piece of the business, but only the good and none of the bad. It's a very amazing and incredible thing. And even with that said, and having that great incentive, and the whole reason the points are there is to incentivize to a guy to come out and to sell the fight. You never tell him that. You don't expressly tell him that, but you don't need to. You expect him to be able to connect the dots. But because of the entitlement factor, people don't even value the concept of the clause that calls for participation, which is also known as the pay-per-view points. They don't even value it. So with that great incentive that was looked at with an entitlement and undervalued, it was still harder to get him to do media. So what would a comeback look like? Is a comeback possible? It's the exact same scenario that Francis went through. And Francis hinted he would want to come back, and that made it very clear he couldn't. So I'll just use that as an example. Why would it be different for Jon? Do you believe it would be different for Jon? Is there a need for Jon? Does Tom somehow need Jon? And the UFC needs Tom, and therefore they need Jon? Like, is there a reasonable scenario that you could even go through? Because nowhere in the media is it being discussed. Nowhere in the media is it being called for. Nowhere throughout history have I seen it be true. As long as Tom has made it clear to the world that he's ready, willing, and able to take on Jon, he does not need to take on Jon. His story does not need Jon as long as he stood his ground when the time came and said, I'm ready. And he did. So if you're Tom Clancy, you're great. You're a fictional writer. You can write fantasy. In your most creative of scenarios, what would need to happen? What would a return of Jon entail?